and a leading voice in biomedical acupuncture for chronic pain and injury for recovery. I have some friends that have treated with Dr. Mancini. For nearly 30 years, Dr. Mancini has helped organizations, physicians, and injured workers understand a powerful truth. When you access and regulate the nervous system, you awaken the body and its innate potential to heal, adapt, and perform at a higher level. He's the author of 3 books, including his newest release, Biomedical Acupuncture, Enhancing Accident and Injury Care. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mancini.
Hi everyone, can you all hear me? Good. I just noticed that this is a lot smaller than I expected, so just to know, everyone here will receive a copy of my presentation. So if there's details that are missed on the screen, you will get that presentation at the end, okay? Now, first of all, before we get started, I want to make sure that what I provide you today is going to be of the highest value. So with that said, by a quick show of hands, who here has experienced any kind of stress over the last 24, 48 hours, or at least knows what it feels like in your body? Quick show of hands. Yeah, if you're human, your hand should go up, right? So what that says is that your nervous system is working. And here's what's even more important. The highest performers in the world, Olympic athletes, professional athletes, and actually any high performer in any area of life, they don't try to suppress the stress response. They feel the exact same thing you feel at its worst. They don't try to manage it. They don't try to run from it, avoid it. They don't hide from it. Because they know that that is the source of what makes them great. That's the fuel that taps into their potential. So what they do is they've learned how to regulate it. They've learned how to ground it. They've learned how to concentrate it. They've learned how to transform it, habituate it in their lives, and most importantly, they've learned how to focus it on something powerful, something that makes them great. Now, let's get practical for a second. Let's go to everyday life. How does regulation help everyday life? It makes you think easier and better. You live life with more ease. At a minimum, who wants that? At a minimum, we're not even talking about high performance. So, the way I want you to think about this ancient and primitive survival system that we're all preloaded with is like electricity in a building. So, when you have more and more demands of electricity on the building, stress, that building has to have more what? Grounding capacity to handle that load. Your regulation in your body. Can you guys see the correlation? Okay, so if you turn on every single light in your house, every single appliance, and it's the holidays, so you plug in all the holiday lights. Now you're not that person who just puts a few in. You're that person that lights up the house, the outside, the ceiling, the roof. If there's a tree in the yard, it's getting lit up. You have so many lights that people drive by your house like it's Disneyland. You guys know those houses? Right? And then you have this big generator you roll in because you host the holiday block party every year. My question to you is this. What if the house can't handle that electricity? What's going to happen? We all know what? The circuit blows, right? The same thing happens in the human body. The body hits threshold, and when it hits threshold, the circuit starts shutting down. But it doesn't happen like a circuit in the house. We don't want that. That's called a heart attack or a stroke. Our bodies are pretty amazing. They can adapt, and it adapts to things you're like, oh my body can handle a lot. But there's a point. There's a point that the body hits threshold. And when it hits threshold, it's not as obvious. It's a breakdown. It's subtle. It's kind of like that frog metaphor. You guys know the frog metaphor. You put a frog in hot water, it jumps out, right? But if you put a frog in nice, warm, lukewarm water and you slowly bring it up, you don't know what's going to happen to the frog, right? The same thing happens to the human body. Breakdown occurs, but it happens subtly. And when that breakdown occurs, it starts to drive lots of other issues, signs, symptoms, and ultimately disease. When I'm talking about high performance, we're talking about minimum regulation to get basic health and wellness. Now, I've been in practice for close to 30 years. I started when I was about 3 years old, and I've seen thousands of patients, and when you start seeing patterns and probabilities repeat themselves, you start realizing some things, you start seeing some things. And no matter what diagnosis you see below the radar, there's a state. It's an autonomic nervous system state. And we've heard of it. It's called the fight-flight response, and we call it the rest and digest. It's really health, growth, restoration, repair, function, fight-flight. When systems get dysregulated, this side starts to break down. The body goes into a stuck pattern. And that's the reason why I prioritize self-regulation practices with my patients. But I don't start with them. And the reason why is because patients come into our center from the traditional mindset that the resources to heal are not in my body, they're outside of my body. Injection, medication, oral, whatever it is, but it's outside. Now those are very important modalities, but we've forgotten our innate intelligence. So I can't start the conversation about self-regulation because self-regulation is based on the fact that I can start to activate my body's own innate potential. Does that make sense? So I've been blessed to be trained in biomedical acupuncture. And with biomedical acupuncture, you guys know there's not, spoiler alert, there's nothing in the needle. You guys know that, right? So here's my question. If something changes in the body and there's nothing outside, where's the resource to healing, outside or inside? Inside. So the patient needs to have an experience first before I can teach them anything. That we're gonna cover some things today, a blueprint, an introduction to self-regulation practices that I hope you move forward and continue to work with them. But patients have to have an experience. When the patient has experience, then the conversation starts. Now we have two kinds of responses, two kinds of patients that come to our center, generally. The first patient comes in and goes, I knew it, acupuncture works. I'm so happy. My friend said, but I knew it could work. And immediately in that moment, I flip the spotlight. I have to. I flip it and I say, listen, your body's now starting to work. Acupuncture just simply reactivated that process. It triggered the system. It interrupted that pattern of survival. Your body has the ability to heal. Now that you understand that, because there's nothing in the needle, now that you understand that, I want to start teaching you things that you can do on your own to continue that process. You guys follow me? You got to get the patient on board. And that patient's excited to do the work. And then we have the second kind of patient, the skeptic. More than the other. We see a lot of skeptics. I don't mean extreme skeptics, but you know, they're sitting down and their legs are crossed, their arms are crossed, and the first thing they say is this: I gotta tell you the truth, doc. If my doctor didn't recommend it, I wouldn't be here. Okay, you don't need to believe in it. And then they ask the question. I've had this question asked several times over the last 30 years, and at first it startled me. They go, hey doc, right before treatment, we're gonna get started, you have any questions? Yeah. Doc, does acupuncture really work? It's like asking a surgeon, right before surgery, he's, doc, does surgery really work? Now after the surgeon looks around for cameras and he does like a head tilt, you know, you have a dog, you talk to your dog and he does the head tilt. That's what I used to do. And back in the day, I would be like, okay, I know I treated lots of these cases, the research, I was thinking about how do I formulate something to explain to this patient how it works. Then I realized that wasn't the question they wanted to answer. They didn't want that. Here's the question they were really asking. They were asking, hey doc, does my body have an ability to heal? That's what they're really asking. Because they know if there's nothing in the needle and their doctor's saying you gotta get some treatment, by default, where's the resources? Outside or inside? Which one? Outside or inside? Inside. Now, with a skeptic, you gotta have experience. Like I stopped talking. They need to have an experience that their body has the ability to heal. So within a few treatments, they come back. Remember, they're a skeptic. They're gonna say this: I don't know if it was the acupuncture, but I'm feeling better. But I don't know if it was acupuncture. Okay, that's okay. I go and I usually ask the question, you know, how much better and for how long. I want to know the responsiveness of their body. And they said, well, you know, it's still better. And and then I asked the question. I go, so what else are you noticing? Because people believe that we live in these compartments in each part of the body. The body doesn't work as a system. And the body works as a system. When you start to reactivate self-repair, it spills into other areas. So the patient says to me, well, I'm sleeping better. Well, I don't know if it's the acupuncture. I'm sleeping better than I have for a couple months. And by the way, I forgot to take my medications. I felt so good. But I don't know if it's the acupuncture. And, you know, I look at that and I say, I go, tell me more. And then the patient, well, generally, and I've heard this one too, my wife wants to have a conversation with you. She goes, whatever you did, do it again. Because we haven't argued. See, here's the thing. People want to get better, right? I mean, people want to get better. They want to believe their body has the ability to heal. And when they start getting on board, they start developing something called self-agency. They start developing what we call internal authority. Like, I can do it. I'm part of this. I'm a center of my own integrative care. Who wants positive patients? Raise your hand if you want a positive patient. Absolutely. But not only are they positive, more engaging, but their system is working better. Because I tell them, I said, once your system starts to work, I can teach you exercises and practices in your lifestyle to reactivate that repair outside of acupuncture. I want to take the initiative to get them to realize it's their own system. Okay? Now, with all that said, there's a truth that you don't learn, you don't realize, you learn it through experience. And here's the truth. Patients become mirrors. You start seeing their blind spots. You're doing this long enough, you're going to start seeing blind spots. And then after a while, you realize they're your blind spots too. And when I started to notice that, my patients were not just people I treated. They were my teachers. And I've learned that there's only two kinds of teachers in life. Warnings and examples. And I don't say this with an ounce of judgment. I say this as a student who wants to learn, that wants to grow, that wants to become more, and wants to teach back to the patient and teach back to the community. I've heard some really, really tough stories. I've heard some stories that have inspired me. I've heard some stories that have brought tears to my eyes many, many times. But I will tell you, below the story, every story, there's a state. And if that state is dysregulated, it's driving that story. It's amplifying their thinking and their behavior, not to mention a breakdown in their system. And over time, it starts developing what I like to call a lullaby effect. You know, like a clock. It ticks after a while, you don't hear it, and that lullaby to put you to sleep. But this lullaby puts you to sleep with your eyes wide open. And this is what it sounds like. Tell me if you've heard this lullaby. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I ate that. I can't believe I texted that. Emailed that. Raise your hand if you know other people that have done this. Right? True? Right? We're all preloaded with this. So the key here to understand is this. If you don't learn how to influence this system, it will start to influence you. So let's go back to the teachers in life. So we have warnings and examples. So let's look at an example in life. Let's look at a person that not only learned how to influence it, but he also learned how to, he actually rewrote the program of what we would think was a limitation in human history. It was believed that no human can run a 4-minute mile. Lungs would collapse, heart would stop, it was just accepted. It was believed it was impossible until a man named Roger Bannister came around and he broke the 4-minute mile. Now, some people say, you know, he's a unicorn, he's like a Michael Jordan of runners. He's an outlier. Why only 46 days later, somebody else broke it? 2 unicorns in 1 century. And then what happened? Years followed, more and more people broke the 4-minute mile. Now, there's about 2,000 athletes that run sub 4-minute miles. So what has changed? What has changed is a belief system. It's a belief that it's possible. So, my question to you today is, what is your 4-minute mile? What lullaby are you telling yourself? I can't. I'm too old. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. It's his fault. It's your fault. It's my family's fault. It's my genetics. These are all the excuses I get from my patients. I got 30 years of this. Here's one. I've tried, help me out. I've tried what? I've tried everything. If you believe you've tried everything, have you created your own little prison? Have you told yourself this over and over and over? Right? If this gentleman thought it was impossible, he would just get on the track and goes, okay, today I'm going to work out and do something that's impossible. No, he had to get it straight in his mind first. So here's what I want to do. I want to drop a seed into your mind, a possibility. On May 6, 1954, when people heard that it was possible, they started breaking it. So today, December 10, 2025, I want to drop a seed and ask yourself, what is your lullaby? What's your 4-minute mile? Now, while that seed germinates, I'm going to plant another seed. And here's the other seed. You guys are not off the hook. Just because you may not want to break your 4-minute mile right now, at a minimum, you have to bring in self-regulation practices in your life, because it is a driving force to most health conditions that I have seen that are chronic over time. It's essential. Now, let's go back to our teachers. We have warnings and we have examples. So let's see an example. I'm going to give you a story. It's a short story. It's the salmon story. Really super short. Salmon, they swim upstream. They swim. They push hard. Does this sound familiar in life? They push and they push. They get to the top. They produce their offspring. And then they die. The end. That's it. That's the end of the story. So biologists wanted to know, why are they dying right after they produce offspring? And what they found is that these salmon were producing an extremely high level of cortisol. It was flooding their system. And you'll see a lot of these symptoms here, the signs: inflammation everywhere, skin lesions, stomach ulcers, rapid cellular aging, complete shutdown of repair mechanisms. They're basically rapidly breaking down, rapidly aging, super fast. And you guys are thinking, good thing we're not salmon. So let's see the human version. What's the human version? High cortisol levels are associated with many of the degenerative diseases of aging. Hypertension, myocardial infarction, diabetes, infections, and a lot of the big conditions like Parkinson's, MS, and Alzheimer's. Now, I want to point out something. There is pathophysiology here. There are medications that address and manage them. And the medications are working with the disease. But below the disease, there's dysregulation. So would you all agree that if you take part in your own health and you focus on regulating your physiology, you're going to have better chances. You're going to come out stronger. That is a differentiating factor right there. How does this look? 75 to 90% of primary care visits are stress-related conditions. It's a fact now. They're starting to look at it. And that's the reason why we're seeing more and more of this new model. It's not really new. It's called the biopsychosocial model. It's been around for thousands of years, but now we're starting to see it and see the research of the connection. And this is the connection. So, here is our warning. Now let's go back to nature for an example. The zebra and the lion. Now, by the way, the zebra and the lion, they're not friends. Okay? So when the zebra sees the lion, you see what stress response is designed for. There's a 30 to 60 second window where it's at its best. And if the zebra makes it, it lives another day. So in that 30 to 60 minutes, not minutes, seconds, what happens is the zebra kicks in a high amount of cortisol, like the salmon, a high amount of norepinephrine, noradrenaline, basically adrenaline, and it activates a high amount of dopamine, motivation and reward. What's the zebra's motivation? Live. What's the reward? Escape. So what happens is the zebra goes into tunnel vision, kind of what we do when we go into stress. We go into tunnel vision, and it focuses on the escape. Within 30 to 60 seconds, it makes it. Now here's where the magic comes in. After the zebra makes it, there's a very powerful window. It's called a 90-second rule. We're starting to see this more and more in the literature. It's about 90 seconds, and this is the magic window that the zebra has and also human beings have. So you're gonna learn about this 90-second rule today, and I'm hoping that you can implement it into your life. In that 90-second rule, the zebra doesn't know the rule, it just does it. In 90 seconds, the zebra shakes, tremors. Why? Because it's discharging a high amount of that what? Stress chemistry that's been built up. And something very interesting happens if you watch National Geographic. It breathes real heavy out. Why is it doing that? Because it's offloading carbon dioxide and it's reactivating vagal tone, which you're going to learn both a little bit later. But it's discharging, it's releasing, and then next thing you know, it's back grazing, as if nothing happened. Now, if the zebra had a human mind, it continues to re-engage. Now, a zebra with a human mind is going to look completely different than the zebras that we see on National Geographic. Would you all agree? You already know how it's going to look, right? The zebra with the human mind is going to look different. The zebra gets away from the lion. The zebra's shaking. And it's looking at its hands going, well, why am I shaking? Am I going to die? Now, key point here, this is super important. The state you're in will determine your questions and your answers to yourself, your thinking. So the state that you are in will be how you ask questions and what you respond to in your head. So when you say, am I going to die? I feel like I'm dying. It's coming from that stress response, number one. Number two, you're always providing instruction to the body. You're always telling the body where to look, what to do. So when you start saying, am I going to die? I feel like I'm going to die. And the body's going, oh my God, I'm going to die. And then what happens? You get this looping and looping. Now, if the zebra had a human mind, what does the zebra with a human mind do? Gets on the phone and calls its zebra friends. It shakes. Did you see me on National Geographic? I almost got killed. Right? You think that lion's still thinking about me? You think he told his friends? Shaking, right? What happens is we go into a looping. And when we loop, we refire the pathways. We re-engage the pathways. And we keep re-triggering the process. Does this sound foreign? Does this sound familiar? Okay? We are the only species that can survive the event and die in the replay. Better, so you can't even say any better than that. True, true. And by the way, we have to update our social media. Right? Status update. Just survived the lion attack. Taking your break from grazing for some self-care and need some space. And if anyone knows the Safer Meadow, please DM me. All right. So with that said, now I didn't realize you guys were going to eat first, but I'd like you guys to stand up. Okay? And I want you just very lightly. I want you just to lightly. This is you guys just ate. Just lightly bounce. Just light. And just keep bouncing here for a second. Now, before I was a doctor, I was a full contact fighter. And as a fighter, when you step in the ring, before you step in the ring, you see the fighter on the other side, your body goes into fight mode. And the reason why we bounce, if you ever see boxing or MMA, they're bouncing, they're doing this. But why are they doing this? Because they're discharging that accumulation. Because if you don't do that, you freeze. Keep bouncing. You freeze. Right? And that's not a good thing. You all agree it's not a good thing? Okay, now, I'm going to show you a breath count that we do as fighters. You're going to inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts. It's going to look like this. Go ahead. Inhale 4 times and exhale 4 times. Switch your bounce. Inhale. Now shake like a zebra. Inhale 4. Exhale. Couple more times. Come on. We're almost at 90 seconds. Shake it. Shake it. Couple more times. Inhale. One more time. Okay. You said. You guys did it. All right. Don't do it in heels. You want to do it again? So, a moment, notice, right now for a moment, notice how you feel. What's happening is just doing that, it discharges a lot of buildup that accumulates in life that we're not even aware of. When you discharge, you start to ground. When you ground, the nervous system flips into a parasympathetic state. I tell my patients, so there's many ways to get to this state. Acupuncture is a very powerful way to do that. At the end of treatment, before they get up, my patients are laying there and I say, okay, I want you to take, for a moment, capture the feeling. Notice what you're noticing, because I want you to recreate the state outside in other things you do. So after a while, the brain's like a homing device. The brain starts to learn how to get there faster. So the goal here is to discharge and ground, and if you can do this throughout the day for short periods of time, but really the key is this: capture the feeling and look at other things you do in your life that creates the same or similar effect. This is like me tell my patients, I do this all day long. Do this in your everyday life and you start discharging it before it hits threshold, so the circuit doesn't blow, right? Does that make sense? Now there's an even more important reason to do it. It's not just about getting to a baseline. We also want to tap into our potential. And when you discharge enough of that survival stress response, you start activating a very powerful part of the brain called the frontal lobe. This is what makes us different than any other species. We have a frontal lobe that takes up almost 40% of the brain. And we have the ability to do things no other animal can. And the reason why is because that frontal lobe, so I like to call it frontal lobe superpowers. Now, in order to access those superpowers, you have to be regulated. You have to discharge a system. Because if you don't, blood flow moves from the frontal lobe to the back, reflexive. And when that happens, you start doing things you don't want to do and you shouldn't do, and you can't believe you did it, and you can't, all that stuff. So that's a reflection. I always like to say, tell my patients, whenever you notice your world is catastrophic and stressed, it's you. It's a reflection of you. Don't be judgmental about it. Just get up and move. Discharge your body. So, in our presentation today, you'll see 3 of these bullseyes come up. Whatever follows that bullseye is a foundational pillar. That means you forget anything else. Just remember these 3 pillars. The first pillar is you have to regulate your state first, no matter what. If you want to have access to this superpower, you have to discharge your system. And for health and well-being, it's the number 1 thing you need to do. Now the question is, what does it mean? Like, what does regulate state? And this is the thing I had to all the way up to this morning, I'm like, well, how do I explain regulation? Like, what does it mean? I can give you a cognitive answer or what it feels like. And I can tell you what it feels like for me. So I want you to just kind of see how it molds into how you experience it. Regulated state for me is a more settled body and a clearer mind. It's grounded enough to respond to the moment instead of react. Don't get stuck in the words, but if you feel settled, your attention's clear. Like after you just bounce and breathe, you have more capacity to see. Things are more crisp. You actually activate your brain because your brain needs movement. So you can smell better, see better, hear better, sensations, taste better. So you should have done this before you ate. So a regulated state. Okay, so keep this in the background as we move forward. So let's talk about some of the frontal lobe superpowers. Metacognition, the number 1 superpower of the frontal lobe. Seeing your own thinking as you choose. Your ability to watch yourself, to be the observer. We call it the mountaintop view or the aerial view. The way I like to look at it is if you look out in an airplane, you fly in an airplane, you look down and you go, I can see the big picture. I can actually see way down there. And you see cars, it looks like they're driving like 2 miles an hour. They're going like 60 or 70. So there's an alteration of time, of distance. And this practice of metacognition is a first step practice that it requires you to be in a regulated state. You have a bigger picture perspective. Now, if you're dysregulated, yeah, you'll be thinking about what you think about, but you'll get stuck in the thoughts. So what does that look like? Well, when you're stuck in the thoughts, you're identified with the thoughts. When you're regulated, you can observe, hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little tense right now. When you're dysregulated, you're stuck in the thought, I am anxious, I am worried, it's like it envelops you, you're in it. So what metacognition trains you to do is step outside and see it. In order to do that, you have to be regulated first.
I have a question. Okay. So I mean, I'm assuming that you're able to regulate your state first because dopamine is being released at the same time, right? So assuming like someone has depression, they won't be able to do that unless they get that treated, right? Or
If someone has depression,
yeah,
so
because I mean, the dopamine is not being produced the same as someone without it. So you're able to regulate it because dopamine is being released at the same time as the cortisol, correct?
So when you're in the stress response, movement will start to discharge that dysregulation enough where you can create some space from whatever it is you're feeling. So when you say I'm feeling depressed, when you're in a regulated state. So we're talking about diagnosis, okay? I have clinical depression. So with depression, there's going to be a dysregulation of the state. And to just jump off topic for a moment, when someone's in a state of depression, they're not really in a fight-flight response. They're more in a freeze, disconnect, disassociated response. So when you're in that state, you still are absorbed in it. You're still stuck in it. So the key is the same. You got to move your body in a way that you start to release that stress tension, where you start to be able to breathe a little bit more, be open to it. So that's the first step. Yeah, but I can answer more of that afterward for you. And also, I'd be happy to answer more questions. We'll hold them to the end, because I might be answering a lot of your questions as we go through this. So, but thank you for that question. So, top-down regulation. Settling your body by directing the mind. What we just did is this. When we shaking, breathing, bouncing, what are you doing? You're top-down regulating. So metacognition is like the coach in the corner seeing all the different angles and perspectives. Top-down regulation is going, okay, you're tense. Relax the shoulders. You're tight, your breathing is tight. Breathe slow. Get up, move. I want you to open your attention. In other words, the top-down regulator is telling the body, I need to discharge enough where I can start to feel more open again. Top-down regulation requires you to be regulated first. If you're dysregulated, you're going to go top-down amplification. I'm going to die. That's top-down amplification of more dysregulation. So the step one process is go to your body, move your body, activate the state to get your body settled, whatever that looks like. The next superpower is imagining possible futures, seeing the outcome and then moving toward it. You cannot do this unless you're regulated. When you're regulated, you can see possibilities. Now, this doesn't mean all rainbows. I mean, when we're talking about risk management here, you have to see the problems too, but you don't want to get stuck there. When you get in a dysregulated state, you're living in that future as if that's the only thing that's going to happen. Because like the zebra, you go into narrow focus. When you're regulated, what happens is your attention opens up and you see all the possibilities. That's the difference. So again, it's a reflection. Am I dysregulated? I'm stuck on that future. Now, by the way, when you're in a dysregulated state, that ancient and primitive nervous system doesn't know the difference between future and past. Everything that you're feeling or thinking about in the future, it's happening right now. When you're worried about a future event, when do you worry? In the future or now? Now, when you're depressed about a past bitter memory, when are you depressed? In the past or now? So the way I like to look at this primitive system is like when you talk to your dog. Who here has a dog? Yeah. You don't go to your dog and go, hey, Petey, in 2 weeks, you're going to go to that doggy daycare. It's absurd, because what they're going is they're going with the emotional state in the moment, right? That's the way you want to be thinking about this primitive system. It's always in the present moment. So, regulate first. I'm going to keep coming back to that pillar. Overriding survival impulses. Pulls the pull back and choose growth. Our systems are wired to move away from danger, even if that danger or that resistance creates growth. We feel resistance, we move away. We're wired that way. So when you are, say for example, raise your hand if you go to the gym. Raise your hand if you know what a gym is. Yeah. Okay, when you work out, when you go into the gym or work out, let's say when you exercise, you literally have to override this reflex, because when you step into the gym, you're going to feel what? Resistance. So, and I'll talk about motivation in a second. feel resistance, and you have to move through it. So when you're regulated, you can see that when I move through this, there's going to be a positive outcome on the other side. That's when you're in a regulated state. So you're overriding that by pausing. When you pause, by the way, you start to rewire your brain and start to have metacognition. You start going, okay, I think I could do this, right? That's metacognition, and it's a frontal lobe action. And then lastly, reframing, changing the lens, changing the feeling. Reframing. When you work out, when you exercise, you're always reframing. You have to, because your body's resisting. So when you reframe things, you change the emotional tone of it. You change the way you look at it. You add new meaning to it. In order to add new meaning, you have to be in a regulated state. Otherwise, everything is catastrophic, everything is urgent, and everything has to happen when? Now. Reflection, I'm in a dysregulated state. Let me get up and move, okay? This is all about conditioning, guys. It's like going into a workout. You don't just work out, get to the point, and go, all right, I'm in good shape, check the box, I don't have to do that anymore. You got to keep doing it. So this is a mental muscle. The more you do it, the more consistent you do it, the better you get, and you got to keep doing it. So let me give you an example of reframing. There was a study done with 400 executives. Researchers discovered the primary difference between 400 executives who made it to the top and 400 who didn't. So, hint, it wasn't education. If it was, the guys from Harvard would have been on the top 400. They weren't. It wasn't experience. If it was the person that did it longer, would have been on the top, they weren't. So let's see if you guys can help me out here. Was it because they had better assistants? Was it because they meditated on their waterfall? I think all these things help. Would you guys agree? It helps. They drank the green for some time. They saw stress as a challenge. Which one, guys? You guys are paying attention. Answer D. Success correlated with perception. They reframed. They turned stress into fuel that drove them forward. It was the response to stress. High performers, challenge to solve. Low performers, threat to avoid. You can take the word low performer, because I don't really like that because it kind of identifies like I'm a low performer. Change that and say dysregulation, threat to avoid. Because you can change instantly. You're not a high performer, low performer. When you're regulated, you're a high performer. Instantly, when you regulate, and then you become a high performer. So you don't have to be this or be that. It's not an identity. It's a state that you can make change. Okay, so let me give you a quick example of the power of reframe. Really quick. Nelson Mandela. Now, Nelson Mandela was unjustly put into prison for almost 27 years. 27 years. When he got out, he was interviewed by a reporter. And the reporter asked him something. He said, Nelson Mandela, how did you survive 27 years? You know what he said? And it still sends chills up my spine when I think about it. He goes, I didn't survive, I prepared. He reframed it. 27 years, he was preparing every day, like sharpening his blade. He not only reframed it, but he top-down regulated his system to prepare when he was going to get out. That's the power of reframe. Okay, let's go on to another frontal lobe superpower, overriding survival impulses. So let's go to our teachers again. We have warnings and we have examples. I've had some amazing examples of patients over these years, and I will tell you, these patients are inspiring for me. I've had patients that have been in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and the things I've heard, the power behind them is amazing. I've seen 5 years sober, 15, I've had a couple at 30, and the way my brain works is I'm going to use this resource, I'm going to show them how to use it in other areas of their life, because they got a resource. And I consistently came across the 12th step. So I'm always asking why, that's 2-year-old in me. I'm always asking what's going on, why. And I realized that this commitment to help another, the act of service, has a very profound biochemical response that once you understand how to activate it, it's like an acupuncture needle. There's nothing in the needle, but it's in the resources of the body. So now I'm not taking anything away from the human experience of service, but there's a biochemical response. And if you understand it, you can use it. The biochemistry of service is oxytocin. Now, most people look at oxytocin as the mother-baby bond, okay? And that's true, but it goes further than that. It triggers feelings of connection, safety, warmth, trust, and belonging. Raise your hand if you'd like a little more of that, please. I'll have 5 servings of that, right? I mean, it's something that we all want. So, with that said, let's pin this one because I want to stack it with another neurochemical before I show you how to use it. So, we are going to activate another superpower. This one overrides the selfish impulses. Now, when I say selfish, I don't mean judgmental. I mean, when you're in a survival state and you think you're going to die, who's the most important person in the world? Me! That means you're not conscientious, you're not considerate, and people will judge it, but really you're in survival mode. And one of the most powerful ways to activate or override that is through the power of kindness. And there's a biochemistry of kindness. And the most powerful biochemical component of kindness is serotonin. Now, we all know serotonin for antidepressants, it improves mood, emotional state, but there's other ways to activate serotonin. Early morning sunlight, low on the horizon, you start activating mood and emotional state. Acupuncture activates 5-HT in the brain, stimulates serotonin. By the way, serotonin is also part of the pain control system, right? And it's not just done through sun, it's not just done through acupuncture, but through acts of kindness. So, who benefits? Of course, the recipient. When you're kind to someone, they feel that feeling. What they're feeling is a boost of serotonin, but it doesn't stop there. The person offering the kindness also boosts serotonin. And we have one more group. Anyone observing it has a boost in serotonin and their immune response. Just by watching acts of kindness, performing acts of kindness, or receiving acts of kindness, you're going to get a good cocktail of serotonin. You guys with me? It's pretty cool. It's kind of like, I don't need to take this by mouth. I'm going to activate it. Again, the way I look at all this is like acupuncture. There's nothing in the needle. We're going to learn how to activate these processes. Okay, this is what we're up against. The primitive brain. Now here's a very important thing to remember. The brain was not meant to make you happy. It has a negative bias. I don't mean negative like judgmental, they're negative or positive. They have a negative bias. Why? Because number one thing, what's most important? Survival. So when you're dysregulated and this system takes on control, this is what's controlling your everyday life. You got a lizard with the remote control. I mean, when you say, I can't believe I did that, said that, ate that, texted, the lizard's running it, not you. You're like, did I really say that? The lizard did. When the lizard gets activated, what is the lizard saying? He's asking one question. Where is the threat? Where's the threat? And it gets activated by cortisol, and then you have dopamine kicking in. Just like the zebra, looking for escape. Where's the threat, and where's the escape? This is what I call a lower circuit habit loop. And when you get stuck in that lower circuit, it's threat-based motivation driven by fear, sustained by cortisol. And you're stuck. You know anybody that's like that? Right? Now, our goal here is to raise that and go into a higher circuit habit loop. One that is service-based motivation, driven by meaning and sustained by connection. And that's where our neurochemicals come in, oxytocin and serotonin. Now here's the cool thing. When you start activating those guys, that dopamine doesn't hang out that air. You have a new habit loop. You start to rewire the brain for a higher conscious living because you're coming from oxytocin and serotonin. So the question is, how do you do this? It's through the power of questions. When you start to ask higher level, now again, what's our foundational pillar, guys? Regulate state first. Because if you're dysregulated, you know what the question you're going to ask? Where's the threat? When you regulate, then you can start saying, how can I be kind? How can I be considerate? How can I be encouraging? How can I be thoughtful? You start asking. When you ask a question to your brain's looking for the answer. It focuses the brain on looking for the answer. When you start saying, where's the threat? The brain's looking for the threat. Oxytocin, how can I be of service? How can I support? How can I uplift? How can I bring value? Regulation first, questions second. So I have a question for everyone here today. If you are fully regulated, 100% regulated, you're on your game, and you're asking really good questions, doesn't matter how dysregulated the world is, if you are regulated and asking the right questions, doesn't matter. Does not matter. Let me give you an example. As a full contact fighter, when you step in the ring, when you are dysregulated, you ask the wrong questions. And the question is, where is the threat? And in combat, it's kicks and punches. Now, when I learned that, I go, okay, I need to be regulated. So I focused on regulation practices. Then I stepped in the ring, and I started asking new questions. Where's the holes? Where's the spaces? Where's the opportunities? Same thing coming at me, but I'm changing it by state and questions. So in life, what's your kicks? What's your punches? What's coming at you? That's not as important as you regulating your state first. Because once you're regulated, you can ask better questions. You can see the opportunities. Even if those punches, those metaphorical, whatever's coming at you, you can see the hold every time that punch comes. You guys follow? State first, question second. It's the most important thing you want to get from this. In addition to one other thing. You can't do it one day. You got to condition it. You got to do it. You got to keep practicing over and over and over. And I'll show you how in a moment. Okay, let's move on to a couple more superpowers. We're going to double up here on reframing and overriding. And it has to do with a part of the brain called the AMCC, which stands for the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, AMCC. Now, the AMCC is known as the willpower engine of the brain. And what research has shown is that the way to strengthen this, by the way, it's also been known to be the will to live. The stronger this part of the brain is, the more will you have to live. Do you think that, guys, is that important? How about teaching someone else this too? Can people use this today? 100%. The way to strengthen this part of the brain has been, the way to do it, you guys ready for this? Doing things you don't want to do. That's it. If you do things you don't want to do, you strengthen this part of the brain. How many things in life you don't want to do? So, why don't we turn this into a training? Why don't we start to think about the things that we want, chunk it down to a point that I can start to expose myself to that thing, because it's strengthened by things we don't want to do. So why don't we just do small stakes practice? Why don't we just chunk it down and do little by little? Once I learned about this part of the brain, I realized there are things that I want to get better at. And by pushing into those things, I'm not only going to get better at that thing, but I'm going to strengthen my AMCC. So I cold plunge every morning. I never want to go in the cold plunge. I announced that. I never, ever want to do it. But I know when I do it, I'm strengthening. I mean, there's a lot of other benefits, but I'm strengthening this. And when I strengthen that, my willpower increases. And when my willpower increases, that means life doesn't get easier, I just get stronger. I can move through things better. Because this spills into everyday life. So what if you just picked something every day? I prefer mornings, because if you start your day by pushing through something, guess what? The whole day, your willpower is stronger. This is also the brain's discipline center. Talking about motivation, somebody brought up motivation. I tell you, motivation is not long-lived. It's kind of nice when you have it. But the day in and day out, it's the discipline that gets you through things. When people have motivation on their New Year's resolution, it fizzles out by the end of January. But if they're committed to the discipline of doing the work every day, they're committed to discipline. I'm never motivated to go my cold plunge, but I'm committed to the discipline. You hear the difference? So commit to discipline. You know what the cool thing is when you start committing to discipline, and you start feeling more disciplined, you get more motivated. You're like, I'm a disciplined person. And then you identify with that, and then all of a sudden, I'm motivated. And when motivation comes, it's nice. But just don't look at it as the long-term fuel. There it is again, conditioning. Can't do it 1 day a week. Can't do it 3 days on, 1 day off. Every day, every day, every day. Whatever that means to you. Okay, one of the last things we're going to do, and then we'll start winding down here. I want to dive into something that people know about, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. Now, a lot of people, try to think their way out of stress, and that really works. And if you ask those people, how much control do I have over my nervous system, they're going to say, not that much. But in fact, you have a very direct effect on your nervous system, and it's through the power of breath. We have all heard it, but now I want to give you just a little more physiology so you have a little more meaning. We can reframe it, right? We all have frontal lobes, and we can reframe this to go, this is more of a reason to do this. So, when you inhale and when you exhale, it affects your heart rate. When you inhale, your heart rate speeds up. When you exhale, your heart rate slows down. It's like, we call it a vagal brake. So when you inhale, you release the brakes, and the heart rate speeds up. When you exhale, you push down on the brakes, and the heart rate slows down. So because we have frontal lobes, we're not zebras or salmon, we can imagine. So the way I'd like you to look at this is you're driving down a steep hill. When you're driving down that steep hill, what are you doing? You hit your feet, your foot's on the brake, right? Not to stop, but to control the downhill speed. So when my foot's on the brake, I'm exhaling. When I release the brakes, I'm inhaling, and I'm going faster. Can you see the correlation? I want you to get the image in your mind so you know what you're doing. For those folks that like to bike, same thing. Going down the hill, you're on the brakes. If you don't, you're going to go really fast and you're going to lose control. This is really about control. It's not about stopping and going. It's about control. So, as a review, inhaling increases the heart rate. It releases the vagal brake. And it activates the sympathetic system, the mobilized energy system. We call it fight and flight, but let's just look at it as an energy system. It's not bad. It's just when it's dysregulated, it's not good. When it's regulated, that means you can get up out of bed. If you don't have a sympathetic system, you can't get up out of bed. You don't have energy. Now, exhale slows it down, engages the vagal brake, activates the parasympathetic side. So when you exhale long, extended exhales, what you're doing is you're activating the vagal brake. So let's do a little exercise. So what I'd like you to do, everyone touch their thumb and their index finger, okay, and then touch their middle finger, ring finger, and small finger. Now you can do this just like this, or you can do all four. You inhale for 4 counts, you exhale for 8 counts. So inhale, exhale. Now people are losing oxygen. They can't breathe out on the 4-8. The reason why is because when you exhale, the vagal brake, you want to purse your lips and you want to blow slow and long. I tell my patients, imagine you're blowing on a candle flame, but you don't want to blow it out. It's the best image I have that I've used. So you're inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 8. You can be walking, you can be at your desk and just say, I'm going to do 3 minutes of vagal brake exercise, and I'm going to do 4 inhale, 8 exhale. And I'm using my fingers to count. Okay, does that make sense? So a simple little practice you can do. Okay. So let me give you an example of vagal brake in the world, in life. I'll give it to you by a case study. I had a 25-year-old female who presented to our office with neck pain and panic attacks. She just had a car accident. So she commenced treatment. She started acupuncture. And as I said, I don't talk about self-regulation, number one, because she was in pain and panic. She didn't want to hear it, right? So when she started to see the changes, which within about 2-3 weeks, she started to really notice her pain levels go down. Panic was almost gone. Her medications went down. And we started to have a conversation. And I started to teach her a simple practice, vagal brake training. So she was getting panicked every time she was in the car and when she thought about it. She didn't realize how many times she thought about it. She thought about it a lot. So every time she thought about it, she slowed down her breathing. And when she was in the car, she was always slow exhaling the whole time. Now the cool thing about breathing is you don't have to take time out to do it, right? So you're breathing anyway, so just slow down the exhales all the way through. So she got this down. A couple weeks in, she comes back and she says the panic is back. And I thought, oh man, what happened? And after I asked her a couple more questions, she said, I have this event coming up in about 2 weeks. People from around the country are coming, family, and whenever I think about it, I get panicked. I go, perfect. I go, we didn't fail, we just didn't train you up enough, because that's something outside of your normal day. So when I told her what I'm about to tell you, she thought I was absolutely nuts. This is what I told her. I said, I want you to think about the event. She's like, think about it. I go, yes. But now I want you to think about it, and I want you to do an exercise. She liked to walk and dance. I go, I want you to increase your heart rate with the exercise for 3 to 5 minutes. Get your heart rate up while you're thinking about it, and then at the end of 3 to 5 minutes, you slow down and you start activating your vagal brake, which means slow exhales. So you inhale, you activate your heart rate, 3 to 5, it's intervals, it's basic interval training, right? And that's the way the system was designed. So what she's doing, she's training her physiology to do what the body was supposed to do. Anxiety, stress, fight, flight, go. Heart rate goes up, move in, dancing, she liked to dance. At the end of that 3 to 5 minutes, she slows down, she starts slowing down her exhale. She's training her physiology to discharge and ground. Does that make sense? So she did that. She was great, A student. She's scheduled for the day of the event. Patients like to come in on the competition day, on the day, or whatever, something that's important because they want to make sure they're at their best going in. And they also look at me like the corner man. They know that I'm going to tell them something, remind them of something, so it's kind of a common thing I see. She comes in, and this is what she says. She goes, I woke up in panic and I threw up. And I go, and the moment I put my head down, she goes, but then I said, no, I am not going to let this happen today. What she did, and this is so cool, what she did is she didn't suppress it, she didn't manage, she didn't hide from it. She did what the high performers do. She transformed it. She just wasn't paying attention. The body got in, got a little panicky. She's like, this ain't happening today. She went into her breathing, she did her workout, and she's like, I'm on. And after she came back from the event, she said, I had a great time. Great time. Because what she did is she transformed it. She didn't suppress it. She didn't manage it. Does that make sense? You know, we talk about stress management. No, we want to talk about stress transformation. Use it as fuel. Now, a lot of my patients who I've trained in this practice with vagal brake and all the different practices, you know, these are, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, so a lot of the patients I see that are either injured workers or, you know, accidents or whatever, they keep coming back because they want to learn how do I cultivate this power. So a lot of my conversation with my patients is thinking of times when you want to be your best. You know, same thing. Because now you're starting to transform that and then start thinking about what is it that you want. You're either moving away from something or moving towards something. You're either way, you're moving in that direction. So my patients, after a while, they start realizing the power of their human physiology when they know how to access it. Outside of the treatment, what they do outside in life. Does that make sense? Yeah. Here it is again. Conditioning, can't do it once. All right. So the whole training, the whole class, the whole introduction today is about a principle of what we call resilience. And resilience is defined as the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. That's what resilience is. So we have to build capacity. We have to build it in our day. One of my favorite quotes from Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an action, but a habit. My other quote that I love is from Navy SEALs, you do not rise to the level of your expectations, you fall to the level of your training. I'm hoping you're getting the flavor of this, okay? And I'll show you how to do this in a moment. So my question to you guys is this. If you want to create rituals or habits in your life, when's the best time to create habits in your life? When the seas are calm or when the seas are stormy? Which one? When they're calm. When they're stormy, bets off, I'm just trying to get through the storm. I'm going to stop everything. I'm going to stop working out. I just have to get the job done. It's when you have calm seas is when you build your rituals. So the way I like to build rituals with my patients is what I call through the buoys. Now buoys, you know what a buoy is, right? It kind of floats on the water. And when you start building buoys in your life, which means places where they become safe harbors, ways that you can start to feel rejuvenated, you start to integrate them into your life. So a buoy is like if you have a storm and you put your hand up and you catch a buoy, you pull yourself out, right? You can breathe. And when you breathe, you can regulate, right? And when you regulate, does the frontal lobe open or close? Open. And when it opens, you kind of go, Where is the land? What direction do I need to go, right? While you're hanging onto that buoy. And then what do you have to do? You dive back in. You're regulated. You're ready to go. You know the direction. And if you miss one buoy, boom, you get another buoy. So the more buoys, I'll explain what a buoy is in a second, the more buoys you have in your life positioned in times and locations, you're going to set yourself up for regulation at some point. So what are buoys? There are 4 buoys. Your who buoy, your what buoy, your where buoy, your when buoy. Your who buoy. Your who buoy is a person that you can lean on. You feel safe, uplifted, grounded. Again, don't get stuck in the words. You feel settled. You feel a sense of clarity. You feel reassured. It could be one person or more than one person. Those are your who buoys. Your what buoys. Your what buoys are your tools, things you do. We touched on a couple here today. Mine are, yoga, hot cold plunge, kung fu, all the different things I do. And the more who buoys and what buoys you have, then you just have to position them in your where and when, times and locations. Does that make sense? Okay? Now, again, especially in stormy times, you want to have these anchored in beforehand. You don't want to you ain't going to create them when you're stressed. You create them when you're outside of that place. Qualifying question to determine if a buoy makes it into your life. Does this buoy provide me the outcome of a regulated state? So remember the definition of a regulated state in the beginning? Here it is again. A more settled body, a clearer mind, grounded enough to respond to the moment instead of react. That's my expression, but you get the flavor of it, right? So when you think about these buoys, do they provide that to you? Now, there's 2 qualities to these buoys. Quality number 1, those that feel good and good for you. Love those. But I encourage you to have the other quality buoy. Those that don't always feel good initially, but they're good for you. When you have a who buoy that will call you out when you're not at your standard, when you're not at integrity, that's the who buoy. You don't want the buoy that says good, good, good when it's not really good, right? So you need to have groups and people and a person that will hold you to that standard, okay? Now, I want to mention something about the who buoy. Funny when you say it. Your who buoy, it's super important. When you have to hang on to that who buoy, you got to get real clear to tell the who buoy one really important thing. I'm hanging on to you either for solutions, I need to hear some outcomes of changes and improvements, I need to know what I'm doing, or I just need to vent, and there's sounds coming out of my mouth like a zebra, and there's no meaning. I just need you to hear me and be there for me. Because if you don't differentiate that, either for the who buoy, and if you're a who buoy yourself, it's a good question to ask. Do you want solutions, or you just want me to hear you? If you don't ask that question, then this is what may happen.
It's just, there's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Did you have a nail in your head?
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail.
See, you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. All my sweaters are snagged. All of them.
It sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on, if you would just.
Don't.
Just ask the question, you want solutions, you want just to be heard? You need someone just to vent, like the zebra. No meaning, just express, right? Ask the question, find out. Now, as you start building your buoys, your pit crew, and that's the way we look at our team at the center. We look at our center as a safe harbor for our patients, because patients come in dysregulated, right? They're in pain, they're dysregulated, so we have to be a safe harbor for them. So think about your pit crew, your people, the people that you want around you. Now this, when you do this, you'll also end up pruning. You're gonna start noticing people that amplify the stress response. They're just not probably best for you. Now, you gotta, you have your family. Keep your family, but pick your peers. Pick your tribe. Pick the pit crew that will support you. And one way, just to help you with the pruning process, I'm not available right now, but thank you for calling and caring enough to call. I'm making some changes in my life. Please leave a message after the beep. If I do not return your call, you are one of the changes. We're having fun here. And by the way, when you laugh, you're de-stressing the nervous system. Ha, ha, ha. Right? Pick your peer. Now here's the thing about peer groups. They see you more than you see yourself. When you're around someone that sees you more than you see yourself, you kind of want to hang out with them because you feel good. That's a clue that you want them in your pit group. Okay, second bullseye as we wind down here. Patterns persist. Now this is not new. We've been doing this the whole day. It's the conditioning response. Patterns persist. Patterns persist. Now, anything that you repeat, thoughts, movements, emotions, reactions, they all get easier to fire next time. Thoughts are big ones. Movements, emotions, and reactions. Your brain doesn't care if the pattern is helpful or unhelpful. It doesn't care if it's good or bad, if it's conscious or unconscious. If you keep doing it, it gets wired in. Repetition makes the pathway stronger and faster. This is how you develop skills. Thousands of techniques over and over, punches, punches, punches. You get really fast at it. Why does this happen? Neurons that fire together, wire together. Hebbian law. That's how you develop a skill. If you like it or not, you do it over and over and over, it's going to be a skill. Your brain saves energy by choosing the familiar. This is important. If you're going down this trail every day, the same trail over and over and over, it's going to be easier. So nerve cells that wire together and fire together, you start creating those grooves, it becomes easier. And when it gets easier, then it becomes automated. Okay? Does this make sense? Yeah. All right, the last bullseye of the day. This is a very unfair bullseye. It's called the law of practice, and it's a lopsided rule. And it's not fair, but if you know how to use it, it's pretty powerful. So, let's get an example from our good friend Usain Bolt. You guys have heard of Usain Bolt? Considered one of the fastest men in the world. So let's see his stats. 2009 Berlin World Championships, 100 meters in what? 9.58 seconds. 200 meters, 19.19 seconds for a whopping total of 28.77 seconds. My question to you is, how many days a week do you think he trained? 5 days a week, sometimes 6. How many hours a day do you think he trained? 5 hours a day? Is that lopsided? 28 seconds. So, here is my point. How do you integrate all these self-regulation practices in your life? You don't have enough time, and you're busy, you got work, you got life, you got family. So what you do is you have to start looking at life as your training ground. You look at your life and go, I could do a lot of work here. If I start looking at everything that I do, I can start implementing training into my life. And guess what? No one needs to even know. You're just integrating these practices into your life, not taking time out. Does that make sense? Small stakes practice, not big things, little things, little things, little things. So, we talked about buoys. There's a lot of buoys we talked about. People buoys, groups, clubs, organizations, pets. Pets are great buoys. Dogs. You leave, you come back, it's like they haven't seen you for years, right? It's true. I mean, if people were like that, we'd have a lot better relationships. So, what buoys? Bouncing, breathing. We talked about all these here. Frontal lobe. Humming. Humming is a great buoy. When you hum, you vibrate the cords, you activate the vagus nerve. It soothes the vagus nerve. Singing. I'm not a good singer, but I sing by myself. Singing. Stretching. When you stretch, You stretch, you activate the cerebellum, it relaxes the body. I dare not stretch when the alarm goes off in the morning. Because if I stretch and I'm in bed, I'm going back to sleep. I drop back in. I hear the alarm, I get up, and then I stretch, because I've done it too many times. It relaxes your nervous system. Rocking, it's not just for babies. Laughing is a great one, guys. Why? It's the most powerful way to break your state. When you laugh, you have to change the meaning of something. When you change the meaning of something, you change your perspective. And you laugh, ha, ha. You activate the vagal brake. Now some people might say, yeah, but that stressful thing is still on the other side of it. You still got to come back to that stressful thing. Yes, you do, but you're coming in more regulated. You have a different perspective. You're going to look at it and go, that was clearly not catastrophic the way I thought it was. And you know what? We're going to hold right now. We're going to do this later. Because when you're in a stress state, it's what? Catastrophic. And when do you have to do it? When? Now! Right? So just breaking your state changes you. The world stays the same. Those punches and kicks come. It's how you respond to them. Frontal lobe open, state regulated. You guys on board? Yeah. Now, as part of the what I'm going to provide you, I'm going to give everyone the PDF of the presentation. I'm also going to give you an attachment of a clean buoy sheet, so you guys can fill out your own buoys in your life and talk and your who buoys, your what. It's really about location, where and when. How can I locate them and put them in my head? Start to do that, and you'll start seeing good momentum. Okay, so let me wrap up today with some gifts that we want to talk about, and then we're going to do some wrappings. Everyone's already has my book. If I know more people came than we expected, so if you don't have a copy of the book, just let us know, Patricia and Steph, and then we'll make sure we get you the book. And just real simple, the book explains how by activating the body's innate intelligence, the body gets more through acupuncture, the body gets more primed, and all those other modalities work better. And I've seen this clinically for years, but I couldn't write the book until I saw enough research. Now they have the research, but it's been happening for centuries, but at least for the 30 years that I've been in practice. So that book explains how acupuncture optimizes each of those modalities. PDF of today's presentation, your buoys PDF attachments, so you can fill out your own buoys. And you also have access to weekly education, health, and wellness videos. I do them every week, just on little tidbits of insights that you can incorporate into your life. And then I also want to give you a chapter excerpt of my new book that's coming out in the beginning of this coming year. It's called the book is called Breaking Through the Pain and Stress Cycle into Optimal Health. So my first edition was my first 20 years of practice. It covers diet, lifestyle, exercise, nutrition, and mindset. Then the pandemic came, and I had to upgrade my tools to teach patients self-regulation practices. You all know, right? So I was teaching it a lot. So the book is really now, second edition, which is coming out in this year, is self-regulation practices throughout the book. That was from the first edition. Now we have self-regulation practices in there. There's one chapter called the 7 Attributes of High Performance Mind. So what I've done is I've looked at the 7 ingredients that make high performers go into what we call flow state. And these are things that I've worked on and done, successfully taught my patients, but it just gives you the steps on how to get there. And really what it is in a nutshell is what my patient did. She transformed that fight-flight response into fuel. That's it. That's what it does, and that's what it goes into. And that's it. And then we want to do our raffle now. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do my raffle, and then we have a lot of other things to raffle here as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 2 names that will be selected for a complimentary on-site training session tailored to elevate your organization. The team will learn how to regulate under pressure. Got to make sure you wear your sneakers, not your height, not your heels. Nervous system strategies for clear decision making. Quick access regulation tools, like in the moment, like things you can do in the moment. And biopsychosocial resilience skills, really powerful skills that in Chinese medicine we've used for centuries. I just modified them for today's world. So that's what we're going to do for the raffle. So, okay, we have Laura. Is that Estrella?
Yeah, right there.
Wow.
Do I go up there?
No, you're good. good, we got, you know,
But then we know where you are.
yeah. Okay, number 2, we got Robin Hines. And then while we're doing the other raffles, if we have questions, I'm here to answer questions, and then we can kind of do Q&A in addition to the raffles. Any questions right now? No? Okay, perfect. We can start the raffle. I'll be here to answer any questions. Yeah, I'll take these out here.